Hey ghouls, Terror Krueger, the sweetest psychopath you'll ever meet, and welcome back to my channel. Hey ghouls, and welcome back. I am excited today to bring you another true crime and chill. That's what I'm going to be calling this from now on until I can come up with a better name. I don't know, do you guys have suggestions for what you want me to call this little segment of my channel that I'm starting? I got a good response in the last one from my Albert Fish story. Like I said, he was a brutal, vicious murderer, and I did get a little bit of hate, like very, very little hate. I got so much more support for like the video than I did the hate, which I'm kind of like, hey, I wasn't the one who committed these crimes. I'm just reporting it. Maybe you don't like the fact that I'm a man dressed in drag reporting this story to you. I don't know. Like I said, if you don't like me, then go ahead and click on and watch someone else. But like I said, I'm really interested in true crime. I have been for like many, many years, ever since I was a child. And I just thought, you know, why not share all these crazy stories I find with all of you here? I'm pretty sure most of you find it interesting. Like I said, my channel has been a couple different things, but it's always been related to like horror, so true crime kind of falls into that category. Most people who like horror are also interested in true crime, so I figured most of you guys would love hearing these stories. And I do try to find stories that not that many people have touched base on, because I mean, you could find like 1,000,001 videos on Charles Manson, Richard Ramirez, etc. So actually, this story I have to give a special shout out and thanks to one of my good friends named Israel. He's the one who actually showed me this case, and I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. This happened in Mexico. I can't pronounce the name, so I'll go ahead and put it right here. I'm such a horrible Mexican, I'm sorry. And the reason why this one stuck out to me too is because it is crazy. It's a crazy, horrific story, but this is actually recent. These two people were actually just caught in 2018. So this is much more recent. Like the one we did about Albert Fish, that he did all his crimes like in the early 1900s. This one was just a couple years ago. So, trigger warning for anyone watching. Let's go ahead and jump right into this story. Okay. So today's story, we are going over the monsters of Ecatepec. Sorry if I pronounced it incorrectly. I am a horrible Mexican with pronouncing Spanish words. I should have taken Spanish growing up because I'm embarrassed now that I don't know it. Anyways, we're going to go over the monsters of Ecatepec. They are a two-part duo. It is a husband and wife named Juan Hernandez and Patricia Martinez. Now to get a little bit into the backstory, Juan Hernandez allegedly said that as he was growing up, his mother would force him to wear women's clothing and watch her have sex with strange men she would bring over to the house. He also claims that he was sexually assaulted and abused by women around him growing up who were like his caretakers, most likely women that his mother left him be watched by. And at the age of 10, he actually had a brain injury when he fell down a flight of stairs and hurt himself. Now, similar to last story we talked about with Albert Fish, he did fall off a cherry tree at a young age and suffered a brain injury there too. So is it a coincidence? Can these brain injuries as children lead up to being a mass murderer later, a serial killer later in the future? Who knows? Maybe. In my opinion, I think it might have to do a little bit with it, because I don't think every serial killer had a brain injury growing up. But this isn't the first case where this isn't the first or last case that we hear that someone had a brain injury as a child and he later grew up to do some horrible things in the future. Now, Patricia Martinez, she grew up in a poor family and was said to be very manipulative as a child, and she was actually diagnosed with like an intellectual disability and also was known to be a prostitute some point in her life before meeting her husband Juan. Now, it is said that Ecatepec is one of the most dangerous places in Mexico. There is tons of murders a day, and a majority of it is all towards women and children. So these two are obviously like a big part of that because their victims are all women and some teenage girls. So like I said, Patricia was a prostitute before she met Juan Carlos. After that, in 2008 is when they met. She was working as a waitress at a restaurant that he would frequent. Although she did think he was an assassin, you know, girls love bad boys apparently. Although she thought he was an assassin, or, you know, he could have been, who knows at this point, look at what he did, that she still built up a relationship with him. They eventually got married and had 4 children together. So during the time they met, they did start a business where they would sell like tacky little costume jewelry and clothing, which is a big way that they actually lured most of their victims. Well, Patricia would actually lure the victims into their house by offering them like clothes, cell phones, baby clothes, you know, just anything that they may have needed at the time. The first murder was actually in 2012, and it was unfortunately their 13-year-old neighbor named Luz de Carmen. Patricia actually lured her over by going over to her apartment and asking if she could borrow her phone. Patricia disappears back into her own apartment and doesn't return with her phone. So the 13-year-old girl, of course, goes to her apartment to try to retrieve her phone back, and during that time is when Juan Carlos attacks her. Now, Juan Carlos did say that he was attempting to rape her, but because she was on her menstrual cycle at the time, he decided not to, and instead made her perform oral sex on him. She did throw up after, and he did murder her. After that, Patricia and Juan started cutting pieces of her legs off and cooking them to eat. Now, it doesn't say, at least I'm not sure yet, and I'll correct myself later, I don't know if they ever fed human remains to their children. I do know that they themselves. Their next victim was a young mother named Nancy Patron. She had 3 children, 2 older daughters and a young baby. She did leave the 2 daughters at home while she went over with Patricia to look at baby clothes that Patricia allegedly had for her. Of course, when she arrived, she was also murdered by the couple, and the baby was later sold to someone else. After killing that young mother and selling her baby off, there was a couple more murders in between. They killed young mother and her 10-year-old daughter, and eventually they put out like a help wanted sign. Like Juan Carlos put out like a help wanted sign that he needed someone to come help his wife with stuff around the house. A girl named 2-year-old Fabulosa Reyes, I'm so sorry, I'll just put her name here, I cannot pronounce that one. So Juan Carlos did put up like a help wanted ad, so she came over, and they did state later that she was a bit nervous when she first showed up to the house, noticing that there was no furniture anywhere in sight, but he told her that there was dirty laundry that he wanted her to take care of, and it was in the back of the apartment. So as she went back there to the bathroom to collect the clothes is when Juan Carlos locked her in there. Of course, he did murder her, and he was said to cut 4 pieces of meat off of her body, and Patricia used it to make roast beef. Also, they would collect the hearts of their victims and put them in jars and offer it to a god of theirs. It never didn't specify like who their god was or like what they like were worshiping or anything. It just said that they would put the hearts in the jar and preserve it for like the memory of the women they killed and to like honor their god. Also was stated that there was a child's heart found in the house, and to this day authorities cannot find who this heart belonged to. Eating it. They did testify in court that the bones of some of the women and children were sold to a santero. Now that is also somewhat similar to like voodoo, so of course the human remains were used, I'm sure, in some type of like brujeria or something along those lines. I'm not too familiar with it, but I'm pretty sure what else you need human remains for. Yeah, because I was like, because the way they get caught, and we'll get to that later, is pretty crazy, because for as many women as they killed, they did say that a lot of the victims that they did cut up to eat, that the meat would last them like a good week. And like I did say, I don't know if they actually fed the entire family the corpses of these women, or if it was just them who consumed it. But I'm assuming that is how, besides eating it or saving the hearts, that is how they got rid of some of the body parts, by selling it to these people to do whatever they do with it. And in October 4th of 2018, they were already like being suspected of committing these crimes. They were actually caught when they were crossing the street with a baby stroller, and when the police did approach them and like check them all out, they found out that there was no babies inside of these strollers, but it was actually like just bags of like human remains, like different body parts of people that had cut up, and they were easily taken in. When their house was searched, there were several buckets they found in this room that they called the dark room, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And in there, that's where they had like several refrigerators, and in all these buckets were other remains of women. And 2 vacant houses around their area, there was also other remains found. And what really kind of like got them good was that 3 of the victims that were murdered, their phones were recovered, and when they went through them, they found out that Patricia's number was in there with text messages luring them into the house. Now, with their children, I don't know what happened with their children after they were arrested, but it did say that the children they tried to keep their children like in the unknown about what they did. So that's why I said I'm not sure if they were like unknowingly fed human body parts or if that was just something that they did amongst themselves. But it said that they did try to keep their children out of like this murdering escapade they were doing. And it's also said that, like, as I mentioned earlier, Patricia had like an intellectual disorder. Most of her neighbors said that they didn't believe it because that she was pretty much a normal woman, besides the fact that she would murder and eat all these people. I mean, something has to be wrong with her. I mean, not only was she eating and murdering and luring these women to their death, but she would watch as her husband did sexually assault and kill all these women. I mean, afterwards, they would together cut parts of these women up and then cook and prepare them and eat them together. So something had to be wrong with this bitch. Like, I'm sorry, both of them, not just her. Like, something was wrong with these two fools. Juan Carlos and Patricia were sentenced to 80 years in prison. There was an additional 30-year charge against both of them. For some reason, the judge removed that, but they were both spending 80 years in prison, which I don't know why he took it off. I mean, 80 years, I mean, at least hopefully they'll both be dead before they even get near the end of their fucking sentence. After they were arrested, they did tell police and psychologists, I believe they were speaking to, about what they had done with most of the victims and their crimes. He would perform a ritual of dismemberment where he would split them in half and then he would just cut parts of their body off. So after he would cut off all the meat, he would chop it up and they would make it into steak, carne asada, tamales, and etc. Like I said, I'm not sure. Like, I really want to know if it was just them who consumed all this or if they like sold it, gave it to family. Who knows what they fucking did with it. I know the parts that weren't able to be eaten by them, they would feed to their dog. And like I said, these people were fucking sick. One of the youngest victims was 7 years old. Juan Carlos did say that he didn't intend to kill her. They were going to keep her. I don't know if it was one of their own children or what. But after keeping her for a few days after murdering her mother, he did admit to suffocating the young girl. He did not sexually assault her, which, I mean, he still murdered her. So what a fucking sick piece of shit. But I mean, at least that. Like I said in the beginning of the video, Juan Carlos did say he was sexually assaulted and forced to watch his mother have sex with like random strangers in the house. So a lot of what I do think and what I've read is that he had like this hatred towards women and was supposedly alleged to have some borderline schizophrenia, and would also tell people after his arrest that he was a demon and needed to survive off drinking human blood at least 3 times a month. Patricia also said that she was sexually assaulted at a young age, which led her to live a life on the streets, which led her to become a prostitute later in life. So these two obviously did not have like the best time growing up, but I mean, there's also a ton of people out there who also had very similar or traumatic childhoods who didn't grow up to fucking murder and eat people. So in meeting later in life, the reason why Patricia said that she had such an attraction to Juan Carlos was that he didn't hit her, so that's probably like the first time in her life that she met a man who wasn't like abusive towards her, and was said to actually be really affectionate towards their children. So it's crazy to think that they could be these like this loving couple and, you know, good parents as far as we know, but then commit such heinous acts against others, which is disturbing. But back to Patricia's like mental disorder, they said that she had like this personality disorder that made her very submissive and obeying to other people, which could lead up to like what they did, which why Juan Carlos was mostly blamed for all this. But when it came to people who personally knew her, they said that she seemed like she was pretty much a normal woman and didn't have a mental disorder. But you know, I mean, hello, like real quick out there, I suffer from bipolar and shit like that, and I keep that hidden pretty well, at least I think so. So who knows, she could have been suffering from this, and we don't know what she was like behind closed doors with her husband. Like, she could have been just as much abused, but like I said, most people who knew her said that she wasn't. And when asked by doctors who examined her after like the fact that they were arrested, said that she may have had that disability, but also was very well aware of the difference between right and wrong. So she well aware knew what she was doing, because of what I also read is that after he killed the first victim, this is why I don't know, the story kind of like twists and turns, that after she discovered the body of the first victim, she wanted to call the police on him, but Juan Carlos did convince her that if she were to have called the police, that she would have also been arrested for whatever reason. But when I was reading the story about their first murder, like, she lured the girl to the house and also watched her be assaulted and murdered, and then prepared her meat after they cut her up. So I don't know about that part. But that said, let's end it there. So that was the story of the monsters of Ecatepec. Like I said, I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong. So both of them were sentenced to 80 years. So let's just hope that both of them die before they ever even get close to seeing the light of day again. Unfortunately for their children, I don't know what happened to them, if they were sent to foster care, or if they possibly had other family who weren't psychopathic murderers. Hopefully have the custody of those kids now. Who knows? But anyway, that was this week's story. Yes, it was another crazy cannibal child-killing couple this time. I have some stories lined up that I am super excited to bring you guys. I also want to get into other like true crime things, not just murder and cannibalism. There is other things that I found that I'm like really excited to do research on and talk to you guys here about. So hopefully you're interested and ready for that. Like I said, I am learning a lot doing this type of video now, like learning like more about some of these true crime cases that I've heard about. Like I said, this one was told to me by one of my good friends. He did suggest the story, and he actually suggested another really good one that's a bit more in detail. So as soon as I do the research on that, we'll go ahead and share it here with you guys. But thank you for guys sticking with me and, you know, checking out my channel. If you're new, hello. I'm super excited to have you here with this Krueger cult. I have a bunch of like crazy stuff I've been wanting to bring you guys here, not just the true crime videos. I do want to get more into like horror movie reviews or whatever, you know. So I'm super excited for that, and I'm so happy to have you guys here watching. If there's like a true crime story you guys want to hear about, go ahead and leave it down in the links below, and I'll go ahead and research it and, you know, try to share it with you guys here. I'm super, like, actually, you know what, like I was talking before, the makeup community just got so boring, so shady. I was so close with like a lot of like makeup YouTubers, of course, but once they got like that tiny bit of fame, they all decided to stop talking to me, or, you know, just became really douchey or like stuck up. So that's why I kind of like, you know what, I'm taking a break. I'm getting out of this makeup world and moving on to something else, and I am super excited. Like I said, I'm still gonna dress up in drag for you guys and, you know, share true crime stories with you. So thank you for guys being here. Thank you for subscribing. I really do appreciate it. So just, if you want to hang out with me between uploads, you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram. I'll go ahead and leave those links down below right next to my Cash App if you want to tip this witch. But like I said, what I would always appreciate so much more is if you hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with everyone you know. And until the next time, this is Terror Krueger, and I'll see you ghouls later. Bye.